Welcome to another episode of the Gower Hour. I am Megan Gauer. This is not Rob Joyce with me today, though. We've got BMac filling in his shoes. Rob is a little under the weather, trying to save his non existent at the moment voice for the SEC tournament down in Greenville. So we've got BMac here with us today. Seven for Rob. Rob will be back next week. But it's champ week, BMac. How are you feeling?
Yes, yes, it is, and I'm very happy to be here. And like I told you guys in the Slack messages when we were leading up to this situation, at the very least, people will be so upset that Rob is not here that next week's show the views will just skyrocket, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, we'll miss him, but BMac is a great replacement, and we've got plenty to talk about because conference tournaments have kicked off in all of the major conferences. Also, some really important mid-major tournaments this weekend that I think have pretty big impacts on the bubble. So a lot to cover today. I mean, Jam Pake's personally like my favorite week of the season, which I feel like is
Yes,
maybe a hot take. Um, I feel like most people like first weekend of the NCAA tournament is up there because there's just so many games. But I feel like Champ Week is so fun because everyone has a chance to earn a spot in the field. I don't know why I'm calling it fun because I've been updating bracket at 1 a.m. every day too. But it's just such a fun week and fun to see who can kind of play their way into and out of the field over the
yeah,
next few days.
I think it's like you said at the beginning, just the stakes. The stakes are higher right now because there's so much. Just like in your bracketology this morning, there's so much movement, and just in the top half. That with wins and losses here and there, and you could have teams like just a couple weeks ago, Cal and Syracuse went into I think triple overtime. It was, and Syracuse handled business yesterday. And just, I mean, that's how this stuff works out. It's just crazy that way.
Yeah, it's always an exciting time of year. So maybe getting into at least what we've seen so far, we've had the first couple rounds of ACC, Big Ten, SEC, and Big 12. But maybe we can start in the ACC. I feel like not a ton to talk about here yet. But I think one game yesterday that's important just in terms of teams that were kind of in the bubble conversation. I would say these teams are probably now sitting pretty comfortably in the field, just the way the last couple weeks have shooken out. But Clemson getting a win over Virginia yesterday, I think, really solidifies Clemson's place in the field. And Virginia is still probably okay, but a little less comfortable.
Yeah, that 8-9 game is always interesting in every conference because it's
Mhm.
just like you said, it's the teams that are on the bubble talk. And uh, we have been champion on the Her Hoop Stats part of this podcast, especially with Helen Williams and myself. We've been champion Poppy Mania, and Poppy Mania is still rolling strong in the ACC. Sean Poppy has done some really good things in Clemson and just keeps improving each year. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do when we actually get to the tournament, and how they handle things.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a team that has probably exceeded expectations a little bit, like comfortably an NCAA tournament team. Like it's been a little bit since they've made the tournament, and they've just really got things rolling. And I'm excited to see what they can do in this ACC tournament. But also, like you said, as they get to the NCAA tournament, they've got Duke today, so obviously not an easy game to follow up Virginia with. But that's the way these things go in these conference tournaments.
Well, and just like with the Cal and Syracuse game I talked about earlier, I mean, just a couple weeks ago, Clemson, and Duke came down to the wire, and oh my gosh, I bring up Helen, and now I'm acting like Helen. I can't remember the kid's name. The girl that hit the 3-pointer to win it for Clemson. Oh, I can't think of her name. It's gonna bother me. I always make fun of Helen of Helen for this, and now I'm going blank. Oh gosh, that this is bad podcast, but I'm gonna look it up. Oh man, what is her name? Was it Perryman? No, Cone. Hannah Cone. Hannah Cone. Yes. Yeah, man, that was a heck of a shot that just a couple weeks ago she took that she hit to take down Duke. So maybe we get a little bit more intrigue and a little bit more fun coming out of this game here. This day in all Power Four conferences, I was looking at the schedule. I see a lot of games you need to be sitting down for
Yeah.
on the schedule. There's going to be a lot of multi views in my day today.
Yeah, I think it's a quarterfinal Friday, so you got 4 games at each of the power conferences, and things are starting to get interesting too in, like, Atlanta 10, and yeah, a lot of games to watch today, and tomorrow for that matter too, but particularly today. Uh, Maybe moving on to the Big Ten, which is maybe the most impactful, I would say. Well, I think the toss up maybe between the Big Ten and Big 12 for most impactful day yesterday. But when we're talking about the top 16, I think certainly the most impactful day
Yeah.
yesterday in the Big Ten. Particularly, I think Michigan State losing to Illinois after kind of following up there the end of the regular season with a loss to Ohio State, and Ohio State really dominated in that game, and then the loss to Illinois in their first game of the Big Ten tournament, I think probably pushes Michigan State out of that hosting group that they were in the top 16 reveal last Sunday.
Yeah, I did, and just the job that Shauna Green has done since she's been at Illinois, it just keeps getting better, keeps improving. Um, and Michigan State has been one of those teams all year long. You got Kennedy Blair, you have Van Sluten, and they'll win 2 games, they'll lose 3. It's just kind of been up and down for them, and just the fact that they have been maintaining that top 16 level to this point has been impressive. And I hope that this loss doesn't hurt them too much. What did it take them in your bracket?
Yeah, it takes them just to the 5 line, so it hurts them in that, like, they're not in that hosting conversation anymore. Well, I wouldn't say they're not in the conversation, but likely going to stay out of that top 16 group, I think, with that loss. Had it just been this loss, I think they could have stayed in, but just the way in that they lost to Ohio State in that regular season finale, followed up by this, I think they fall out of that, and really was inevitable for someone of the Big Ten. There was 4 Big Ten teams on that 4 seed line last week on Sunday when they revealed that, and kind of my first thought when they did that was like, "Well, that certainly won't stay that way because all of these teams have to play each other, right, in the between the regular season finale and the Big Ten tournament," and it just never felt realistic that we would get 2 weeks from now or 2 weeks from then and see 4 Big Ten teams still sitting there, so
Well,
inevitable that someone was gonna fall out, and I think Michigan State is just the unlucky team that will. You said they've been strong all season. I mean, Kennedy Blair still had 30 points yesterday, but just not
yes,
quite enough. Illinois got, I think, great contributions from everyone on the floor, despite playing only 7 players, and was just really able to get the win. This Illinois team too is a team that Rob and I have talked about a lot. Just they're so young,
yeah,
but they're going to be so good next year. But you can start to see already that it's coming into its peak a little bit this year, and win over Michigan State here. They climbed to a 7 seed, I think, from that, and just I'm interested to see if they can make a little bit more of a run in this tournament here in the Big Ten.
I think honestly, because you don't notice again, just unless you're just really paying attention. Like I know we are because we're looking for other things, but that they play 7 players
Yeah,
because and maybe it's because they're just so young and don't know that they're tired. They don't seem tired. I mean, you don't see anyone slugging it up and down the floor during the game. I mean, she does a good job, Coach Green. That is of just bringing in players, subbing them in and out. Yeah, Illinois just that youthful exuberance, I guess you could call it.
yeah, and an important win here, a close win too. I think it's always interesting to see when a young team like that is able to pull out a close win in a stage like this in the Big Ten tournament. You don't have a lot of experience in those big moments, but I think it's really important for them to start getting that experience, and they certainly got it last night and end up on the right side of it. So I thought that was great to see for Illinois as well as you think about what can they do this postseason, but then also like if everyone stays, how does this team get better prepared to be really good next year? And I think having to be in these tough moments and big moments is going to be huge for this team's experience next season.
Absolutely. I know the other game that you have here listed is we're going to talk about is the one that happened late last night, and this actually has for people who listen to this podcast all week long. You heard yet on yesterday's episode, Cindy Brunson that has picked Maryland as her team in the Big Ten that could possibly make a run. So to see them go out, kind of hurts that theory. But I will say this: it doesn't matter where Maryland ends up in the NCAA tournament. You just put Maryland in there. You have Brenda Freeze, Sager Poppenberger, Yarden Garcon. You have that nucleus. They've been able to hold it together through injuries and everything else they've had all year long. They're going to be a dangerous team wherever they seed.
Yeah, and I think they probably still end up in that hosting group. They were near the top of it last week. There's a chance they fall out. I think it depends what happens elsewhere. But even if they are a 5 seed, they're a 5 seed that no one probably wants to be paired with as the 4. Like you said, I think I've just been so impressed with this team all season and that the amount of adversity they've faced with the injuries and everything else, and yet they've still found a way to be in that top 16 conversation to win a whole lot of games. And yes, they lose to Oregon last night, but I don't think that says anything about this team season. And I mean, I feel like also Oluchi Okawana, just she's like a conference tournament player. 27 points last night, even though they lost, which was the ACC player of the tournament, I believe, for Duke last year. So she's just something about March for her seems to really get it going.
One thing I have learned in doing this podcast is let people do like what you just did right there. I wanted so bad to say her name, but my Mississippi dialect was not going to let me do it correctly, and I was not going to embarrass myself. So I'm glad you brought her up.
Yeah, it's not an easy one, but I mean, just a fantastic game from her. Like I said, the 27 points, 10 of 18 shooting, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, just really contributed in every way for Maryland. And this team is one to keep an eye on when we get to March for sure. And then on the flip side for Oregon, a really nice win for Oregon over a team in the top 16, make it to the quarterfinals of the Big Ten here. And I feel like that's, I mean, between Maryland and Michigan State dropping games yesterday, that's now 2 teams that maybe weren't expected to be in the quarterfinals that we've got in the quarterfinals in Big Ten. So things are already getting interesting.
Yeah, most definitely. Kelly Graves, you can't count him out, no matter where he is. I have a quick story about him, if you don't mind. When I was at Ole Miss, his video coordinator, we played them in Hawaii at a Christmas tournament, and I know Thanksgiving. I'm sorry, one of the holidays. All the holidays run together. We're over there in Honolulu, and we beat them on a last second shot, and there was some controversy on whether it got off in time, and whatever. And I that was the first time I ever saw Coach Graves get really just that his whole head just turns red and gets that upset. So now that I see him do it all the time in Oregon, it always brings back that moment for me. And it was a happy memory for me. So
That's a funny one. But yeah, I mean, Oregon rolling here as well, so excited to see what they do today in that Big Ten.
yes, absolutely.
All right, maybe tied for the most impactful Thursday is the Big 12 with a lot of results that impact the bubble here. I think when you're talking about the Big 10, you're talking about the hosting bubble, like that top 16, who's going to be in, who's going to be out. But Big 12 certainly very much a part of the overall bubble conversation for the tournament. And yesterday, Utah losing to BYU, I think, is a tough break for the Utes, a team that was as about on the bubble you could get. I think I had them as last team in, so right there, and I think that loss to BYU puts them in a tough position, and they fall out. And I think just it's unlikely that they're going to be able to move their way back into the field.
Yeah, you know what? On the other side of that game, just give me all the Delaney Gibbs stock you can give. I love watching her play every time. And obviously, they usually play later in the evening. In most of their games, and so it's worth staying up for because they're just a lot of fun. I mean, just put up a lot of points, and just the fact that they took out Utah like that, just it didn't surprise me. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward because Big 12, I mean, even though TCU did what they did this year, it's wide open. And
Yeah. I agree. I think you could tell me that any of the teams left probably like win the Big 12 tournament. Well, maybe not like Kansas State, but anyone else wins the Big 12 tournament, and I would say, okay, that makes sense. like this league just has that feel to it. Like yes, TCU is the favorite, but I think anyone is anyone's league, as you said, and I think there's a lot of teams here that can make a run. I mean, BYU could certainly benefit from a run, a team that's not in the field right now, but they keep winning, like, you can't count them out. I think they've got a chance to play it away their way in. Um, I don't know, I think that last night was certainly a great start for them. I mean, a 70-52 win, it's not just a win, but it's a convincing win over Utah. So that certainly helps them out, in that conversation. And then on the flip side, a team that got a really important win, I think, last night, Arizona State won in the opening round over Arizona, which was a win, so it helps obviously, but a big win, I think, for the Sun Devils over Iowa State yesterday.
yeah, Iowa State is another team that if they find, and I know Coach Finley was doing his best to put them in the field and make sure that they're solidly in. They find a way in, and they continue because there'll be a week off before the tournament starts. So continue to get healthy with Addie Brown and everything like that. They're a team that could make some noise depending on where they're seated. But Arizona State, a team that needed that win to get in and to try and get their place into the NCAA tournament. They're on a ride right now, and Molly Miller is the greatest driver of that ride.
Yeah, I mean, 22 points from and 10 rebounds from Gabby Elliott last night, just a really nice win for Arizona State. I think when you're looking at this point in the season and it's one and done, getting these wins that like you obviously want to go and try to win this Big 12 tournament, right? But if that's not going to happen, like a win over Iowa State is a really nice thing to add to the
Yeah,
resume at this point in the season. So I think just a really um, it's an important win for Arizona State. On the flip side for Iowa State, I found this interesting because I thought this was a team that maybe had a chance to like really change where they landed in the NCAA tournament with the Big 12 tournament because, like you said, like Addie Brown hadn't been healthy. She missed a bunch of time. They definitely struggled without her. Now she's back, and I thought if Iowa State could win some games in this tournament and kind of prove that like we are a much better team with Addie Brown on the floor, which they certainly are, even though they lost this game, like that they could have impacted their seeding a lot in this tournament just with like the committee does take availability of talent into consideration. Injuries like that she was out for so long could have helped them. But I think obviously losing your first game does not help you in that situation. So I feel like they're likely to end up in that 8-9 game, which is always a tough one because you've got a number one seed facing you in the second round, where I think they would have liked to play themselves into that 7-10 game instead.
if they are to fall in that 8-9 game, I mean, devil's advocate, I'd hate to be the one seed to see
Yeah.
that coming. Oh man, I mean, because how do you handle all these crooks? I know that's the question that everybody asks, and there's been some different ways of doing it, especially when Addie Brown was out. You saw teams kind of focus in more on her, and she still got her 20 points, but she worked harder than she's had to work to get that 20. And I think that's the key to you just keep making her work, keep making her put a little bit more effort into it and tire her out, and that may be what teams look forward to doing.
Yeah, she's certainly a hard matchup though, like, it is really, really difficult to guard her, and I think if you're the one seed staring that down in your second game, especially with, the quick turnaround, not a lot of time to prep between games in a weekend in the NCAA tournament, that's not a fun matchup to see coming because she obviously is so good, and just when you have a player like that on the floor, a lot of times that automatically just keeps you in these games.
Yeah, definitely. This next game you have listed here to talk about in the Big 12 is it one that surprised me a little bit. And I guess because I guess when they first started it out, Texas Tech jumps out to the big lead, and Kansas State makes a nice little comeback and winds up, taking them down. And it's just a tale of Texas Tech season. They had the big start to the season, winning all those games in a row, and everybody kept thinking, why is no one talking about Texas Tech? Well, I think a lot of people questioned, you know, that the record they had. Okay, are they really that good? Are they really, worthy of their undefeated record? And I think that's what kind of people, because we talked about it on the podcast. I know a few times I've heard people say there's not a lot of mention about their undefeated streak, and then when they lost a couple games in a row, people are like, okay, well, that's why we didn't mention it. That was kind of the narrative. But what did you see from that game?
Yeah, I think we've seen in the last couple of months, like Texas Tech come back to earth a little bit, right? Like they had that great undefeated streak. It
Yeah,
wasn't like a great schedule that they had it against, but like for a team that was 19 and 18 last year, has not made the NCAA tournament in quite some time. Like this is a heck of a season, like a heck of a turnaround. Like teams making the NCAA tournament, um, and probably is a top seven seed. So a really strong year for Texas Tech. So I don't want to discount the season they've had with one loss in the Big 12 tournament. I think you have a team that hasn't been in these moments where they're expected to win these games. And I think that comes with some pressure that they're maybe not used to and you're trying to figure out. But I think overall, when I look, it's like really hard to get on Texas Tech about any of these losses, right? Because it's just like when you look at where they're coming from last year, this year is just such a positive step forward for this program to be in the conversation for the Big 12 race for a lot of the season, to be in a position where they're expected to win a game in the Big 12 tournament. I don't think that's happened often, that they're going to make the NCAA tournament. I think it's just such a good place for this team. And then on the flip side, I mean, this Kansas State team, like they're not gonna make the tournament, but I feel like they've got a few folks in the Big 12 this year. Like they've got some of these wins in them where they're like, especially if you can play a low scoring game, like they can get you for sure.
yeah. Jeff Mitty. He's out. He's got the grit and the fire, and he's got these kids playing at another level right now. And you know, like we said at the beginning, Big 12 is open,
Mhm.
tournament is wide open. So maybe they
Yeah.
make a run, maybe they shock you, and then they'll just have you up in the middle of the night working on their bracketology because you have to put them in now, and where do you fit them? And I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I feel like for Kansas State too, just like a season I think everyone knew was a kind of a rebuild year for them, right? Like you no longer have Aokali, you no longer have Serena Sandell and the talent that they had come through over the last few years where they've been, in that top 16 conversation. And I guess unless they win this tournament, they're gonna miss it this year. But I'm interested to see kind of what they're able to do with developing the talent that they have, getting in the portal and like rebuilding back towards where they were.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, the last of the major conference tournaments that we haven't quite hit on yet is the SEC. I mean, obviously, a lot of important games in that one yesterday. Kentucky, Georgia, like ranked matchups. But I thought to me, the most noteworthy one was Alabama over Tennessee. More so from the Tennessee side, and just like the Lady Vols cannot snap this losing streak that they are on.
No, it just seems like the it's that train that off the track, and they cannot find their way back. It's just one game after another, and I know, and then TV last night, was making social media even worse because they kept showing Talasia Cooper on the bench where she just seemed like she just was just buried there, and you question why did she not come? Because it wasn't like they were out of the game when she sat. I mean, they were right there in it. It was only a couple possessions away. Just those questions will be asked time and time again leading up to wherever they seed in the tournament.
Yeah, I agree, and they're just I mean, 7 straight losses, they finished 8-2 in their last 10. It's just a season that was, I think, going fine kind of really until the last, call it month and a half, and it just seems to have, like you said, totally gone off the tracks. I thought the one positive thing for Tennessee last night, there's not a lot of positives out of this game and them losing in the first round of the SEC tournament, but one positive thing I thought was Janiah Barker having, 20 points. Is just nice to see her kind of seem to get some of her rhythm back after she missed that one game for whatever it means that she wasn't up to the team standards and didn't play great in her first game back, but I thought her seeming to find her stride a little bit in this game was maybe a good sign for Tennessee as we look towards like, okay, how is this team gonna hopefully find a way to reset before we get to the NCAA tournament because like they are gonna be in that tournament still and they have more basketball to play.
Yeah. Well, and with Jania's situation, I mean, like she said, she set out the game for, not living up to the team standards, and we don't know everything that went on. You hear the stories about what went on and what caused that to lead up to that, that one game suspension. But I think it was showed that it was a good showing for her to show that she can get past that. She's moved on, and she's able to still contribute and be the player that everybody knows she's capable of being.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just interested to see. I feel like for Tennessee, if there's any team that can benefit from having, like, almost 2 full weeks off or actually over 2 full weeks off before they'll start the NCAA tournament, it feels like Tennessee is at the top of the list. It just feels like this team needs a reset, needs to refocus, and hopefully that this 2 weeks here allows them to do that. And if it does allow them to do that, it's not a team I wanna see if I'm the 1 seed in the 8-9 game in my bracket.
Now, and I know we're gonna talk about them a little bit when we talk about your bracketology update, but real quickly, I want to go to the other side of that game,
Yes.
because these next couple weeks, no matter where they end up in the SEC tournament, the next couple weeks off will really benefit Alabama as well because Essence Cody is still working her way back from her injury, and you can tell that they're managing her minutes, in and out, and if she's able to get back to full strength before the tournament, Alabama is another scary team because they already have a bunch of different. They have the greatest basketball name in 2026, Ace Austin, leading their charge, and Carly Weathers, and I mean they have some pieces there that they could be a team of intrigue. I like to call it when I talk about it on the other podcast on other part of this podcast. A team of intrigue when it comes to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think this Alabama team just continues to impress me, like, I think right, losing to or Ashley Barker and, like, a lot of their star players after last year just to graduation and such, like, you kinda thought this team might take a step back this year, but I feel like they've been able to really stay right there, right in the conversation in the SEC. They're still a hard out. You said Essence Cody is still working her way back, but Jessica Timmons was fantastic last night,
Mm.
Tamaya Scott. So just a team that's really able to get it done, and it's not like one star player, it's a really a team effort for this group, and I think that's when they let them compete in a obviously a very tough SEC league and um, a team that's looked really good down the stretch here. Like I feel like they're the perfect team. Of, like I don't expect them to go compete with. I forget who they have to play today, but like if they have to play one of the top 4 teams in the SEC, I don't necessarily expect them
Welcome,
to compete with
Texas.
them. But yeah,
Come on.
I think like when you get to these middle games, they're really able to like deliver and find a way to win.
Yeah. Yes. No, I was looking at the before we started at the pairings that we have today, just in the SEC alone. I mean, it's going to be some really good games.
Yeah, exactly. And just like to your point about Essence Cody too, someone asked me yesterday, like, because the men's game, right? Like most of the teams play their conference tournament the weekend of Selection Sunday, so just a
Yeah.
week before the tournament, so you don't really have this concept of having 2 full weeks off, like a large majority of the well, I shouldn't say a large majority, but a large majority of the teams in the tournament do because the major conferences on the women's side all play, um, the weekend before that, as do a lot of the men majors that would be in the conversation for multiple bids. And I just think it's such an advantage in the women's game that you get those 2 weeks, you get that time to reset. You've been playing right down the stretch of the regular season, 2, 3 games a week every week, and then you're playing 3, 4 games in the same amount of days in these conference tournaments, and it's just a lot on everyone at a point where they've played a lot of basketball, and I think having those 2 weeks off just allows these teams to get a break, work on the things they wanna work on, get everyone healthy from all the little things that, like, they're still playing even, like, not just people coming back from injuries like us and Scotty, but people that everyone's got something nagging right now at this point in the season, and the ability to rest some of that and get those extra practices in and really, um, prep for the tournament, I think makes the basketball in March and into April even better.
Yeah, yeah. I know coaches that use these next 2 weeks and almost make it like a season reset. Like it's a
Yeah.
whole new season. We're prepping and we're getting everything ready to go for for game one. You go one game at a time, and you got game one coming up, and that's the way they handle it. And I think that's a really good way of kind of putting it because they that break is something that's just it could break you, honestly. It could be a deal where you don't focus and in 2 weeks from now, you play your first round game and you get upset, and I've seen teams that have fallen that way, so yes, it's all a part of the game. It's part of the March Madness fun.
Yeah, exactly. Alright. That's enough about what happened in the last couple of days. Should we move on to
Let's get to the part of the show where we talk about how, the stuff that keeps you up at night.
I do feel like we've hit on a lot of the big bracket changes as
Yeah.
we've just been chatting through here, but I think the things that I'm most interested in and kind of looking at as we get into the next few days here is a lot. I think the top 16 started to change a little bit last night with Michigan State falling out, but I think as we look ahead to the weekend, there's going to be a lot of shakeup in that top 16 and the order and who hosts and how that's all going to fall with the regional pairings. I think that's particularly important this year, and that the way that the different conferences move around in that top 16 will, I think, really impact what the regions look like just because there's so many rules about how you can bracket the teams from the different conferences, and like the top 4 seeds from each team and those in that top 16 need to be in different regions, and I think that's causing a lot of deviations right now from the S curve on the top 4 lines, and interested to just see how that all changes and where things land as we get through the next few days.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, 'cause, like I said, you just put it out this morning, so I haven't had a chance to kind of peruse it too much. What, where do you have Tennessee currently? Now that they've lost and they're out of the SEC tournament, what did you put them in your bracket?
I dropped them down to an 8. I thought if they were able to win a game in the SEC tournament, like just win the Alabama game, they would have stayed a 7, maybe been in talks for a 6, had, depending what happened elsewhere. But I think with just the 7 straight loss here, they have to fall to an 8 seed, and I know there was a lot of chatter like a couple weeks ago, like, are they gonna miss the tournament? Like, this is a team with 5 quad one wins. They're not missing the tournament, but I think they just like, especially we see the committee clearly values recent performance. The committee always shows a big emphasis on what happens in the conference tournament. So going one and done there does not help them. And I think they likely fall to that 8-9 game. I would be shocked to see them anything lower than an 8 just with like 5 quad one wins. I think you start getting into the 9 and 10 seeds, you're talking about teams that only have 1, 2 quad 1 wins. I think even with this losing streak, you probably respect them enough to put them at least an 8.
Yeah, they definitely deserve to be at least above, that whole crop of just one quad win
Mhm.
teams. Uh, I just in my mind as I was looking at things leading up to this recording, I had this question last night, and I said I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna ask Megan tomorrow. Vanderbilt. I've heard a lot of chatter over the last couple of days. If they're able to say they get to the SEC championship game and they lose it, if they're able to get to that point, now obviously if they win, it's a whole nother conversation. But if they lose the SEC championship game, getting to that point, in theory, and say Duke and North Carolina State, no, Duke and Louisville in the ACC, say they don't make the ACC championship game, something happens there. Would you be willing to put Vanderbilt in that one seed line?
Yeah, I think so, and I actually don't think it even matters what happens in the ACC. I think that one seed runs through either the SEC or the Big Ten. So I think SEC wise, if Vanderbilt beats Texas, that's what's going to have to happen, right? Well, I guess someone could upset Texas today. Alabama could upset Texas, and they could beat Alabama. Um, but if Vanderbilt makes it to the SEC championship game, I think they are the final one seed. I think when you look at Vanderbilt and Texas's resumes, they're pretty close together. Personally, I think Texas is a little bit better, but I think if Vanderbilt has now 2 wins in that head-to-head column, it's just gonna be really hard to justify putting Texas ahead of them, so I expect that should Vanderbilt make it to the SEC championship game, they get the final 1 seed. Um, the only situation where I could see that maybe not happening is if they make it to that final championship game, but it's LSU and LSU were to win it. I think if LSU wins, they I don't think they have to win it, but if they were to win the SEC tournament, they have a shot at that final 1 seed as well. Um, and then also Big Ten wise too, like I think if Iowa or Michigan wins the Big Ten tournament, they have a shot at that final one. But I think all those 3 teams are in situations where they actually need to win the conference tournament to get there, whereas I think Vanderbilt, if they beat Texas in that semifinal, that would be enough.
Yeah, you brought up the Big Ten, Iowa, Michigan. uh, w- w- me and Cindy were trying so hard to think of another team in the Big Ten because at the end of the day, we all think, okay, UCLA is just gonna stay
Yeah.
status quo. But if Iowa or Michigan, they've both played UCLA tough. Both of those teams have a shot to to do some damage there. And like we keep saying on the other, and I keep bringing up the other part of this podcast, the her hoop stats part, and we keep saying it almost every episode. Michigan is due. They have played way too many close games with some big time competition. Those young kids are due for something special, and it would be something special to see it in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, I think if you get, like, Swords getting hot, Olsen has been so good all season long, like, are they able to is someone able to get UCLA in that championship game? I feel like I have to see it to believe it at this point because UCLA has just it feels like pretty much rolled through the Big Ten. Like, yeah, there's been a couple close-ish games, but it really never feels like it's come down to like the absolute wire, and it's been in doubt for UCLA in conference play. They just have so many weapons. I mean, Lauren Betts is obviously just a matchup nightmare for pretty much every other team in the Big Ten, but the experience on this UCLA roster, right? They're starting 5 seniors and bringing more in off the bench, the talent and the depth, it's really hard to compete with UCLA, but if Michigan or Iowa is able to do it, I think if they get the win, they've got a shot at that 1 seed.
When you can bring a former Pac-10 Player of the Year candidate off the bench and Charlize Ledger Walker, you have a lot of depth.
Exactly. Um, a lot of depth.
It's
It is insane when you look at that roster and how stacked it is and just the versatility of a lot of their players too, and you look at I mean, like, Gabrielle Hawkes has always just been such a versatile player, and I think she's gotten so much better in her 4 years at UCLA, but the amount of things she can do for them is so impressive. Angela Dujoulite Dugalich, sorry, is another player that's just very versatile. They've got a lot of weapons that can play in a lot of different spots on the floor.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, should we look ahead to the weekend? I mean, I feel like the SEC tournament, we almost kind of covered a little bit here, and just that,
Yeah.
like, I think it all is about when you look at the SEC, it's all about these top four teams and like how are they going to shake out over the next couple of days. I don't want to jump ahead of ourselves to the semifinals, but I think everyone's kind of circling the SEC semifinals on their calendar this week.
Yeah,
Um,
we love to see who's gonna be in that semifinal
yeah,
and how it impacts going forward. That's what
yeah,
everybody wants to see.
yeah. But looking at the bracket here, let's see. We've got today though. I feel like a great slate of matchups. I think the one I'm most interested in, when you look at the quarterfinals, is that LSU Oklahoma game, 4-5 game. I think this one could be a really fun one, and I mean LSU to me is a team that, like, yes, they're the 4th seed in the SEC, but they feel like they're so close to that top group of South Carolina, Texas, Vanderbilt. Like, clearly had a very very close game with South Carolina a couple of weeks back. But Oklahoma also a team that I think has really kind of hit its stride as of late and been picking up wins handedly.
Yeah, Oklahoma. I've said this here, and I think I even said it on yesterday's episode. They have, I mean, they have so many weapons. You have, and if you're playing to and through Reagan Beers, that leaves Zaya Van on this wing, Peyton Burhos on that wing, Aaliyah Chavez running the top. I mean, it's Sahara Williams cleaning up the glass. I mean, they just have it. Each piece, they have everything you need to be a really good team. And then when they put it all together, they just it, it- and I think that's honestly what we're waiting on to see a game where they have it all together, all clicking. And if that could come in the next couple of days, then they could be a team. They could make some noise.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're a team that when they can get it all together, they're really, really difficult to beat just with the size down low from Rick and Beers. Like you said, when Chavez is hitting shots, is they have all the pieces. It's just a matter of getting them all to do it consistently
Yeah.
together. I feel like the same is kind of true for LSU too. Like,
Mhm.
team has all the talent. It's just a matter of being consistent and hanging it all together.
I think LSU the team that almost likes to beat themselves. They get themselves so psyched up and just they're playing to the crowd and I think they could almost psych themselves out in some instances, but they are so loaded, so talented, and their post players are like I thought at the beginning of the season because I watched them play a couple times live. Beginning of the season, I thought maybe their post play would be what hinders them, but
Mhm.
as the season has gone on, and I shout out Bob Starkey every single episode, they they have vastly improved. Kate Koval and Amanda Joyner, they have uh, Maya Joyner, excuse me. They have just improved tremendously as the season has gone on.
Yeah, exactly, and then when you have the pieces like Flau'jae, like Michaela Williams around those bigs that have gotten so much better, as you said, I think this is a team that's very capable of making a deep run in this SEC tournament, but also in March. Well, we're already in March, but in March Madness.
Oh man, I'm already sweating just thinking about March.
I wanna jump to the ACC because I feel like we hit on them a little bit with the Clemson Virginia game, but we haven't gotten into kind of the top teams there and what's at stake in the ACC tournament. And I mean, obviously, Duke, Louisville, the favorites here, but I think the teams that actually have the most to gain in the ACC tournament are probably North Carolina and Notre Dame more than
Yes.
anyone. Um, Particularly for North Carolina, I thought the win over Duke last weekend was really important. I think a team that's kind of consistently taking care of business this season, but it was just lacking that like signature win. And getting the win over Duke, I thought was really important last week. And I actually just put them into that hosting group with Michigan State falling out. I think it's, between I'm in Kentucky to get that spot right now, but I think North Carolina has a big opportunity to to play its way into getting to host the opening 4 rounds this weekend.
Because I'm a person that really loves offense, and North Carolina infuriates me
Fair
because
enough.
like they're listen, they're very worthy of you putting them in that spot. You know, when Michigan State drops out and you putting them in that host spot, and they're gonna score 55, 60 points a game, but they're gonna hold you to 40. And then their defense is just something just it's something to watch, and it's it makes you cringe a little, but they're
Yeah.
they're definitely just a defensive juggernaut and just can cause all kind of problems for you. They're linked, and I mean just the way they go to the ball and yeah, they're definitely worthy of that spot and a team that could really cause some problems because you need defense and you need rebounding when you get to this point in the season, and they have both.
Yeah, and I feel like those are the building blocks, right, to winning, whether it's a conference championship, winning games in the NCAA tournament, it's always comes down to, like, defense and rebounding are
Yeah,
so important. To give them some credit, though, they did score 74 points against Duke in
they
that win.
do.
Um, I'm the first person to complain about what a North Carolina Duke game is going to look like, but I feel like they have actually delivered 2 games where one the winner scored in the 70s this season, so I can't
Yes,
complain so much. Um, but no, I think Elena Arnasalo out of UCLA, the freshman that transferred from UCLA last year to North Carolina, has been a great addition to their offense, and, um, I'm excited to see what they do this weekend. And then the other team I have my eye on is just Notre Dame. I feel like we haven't really talked about Notre Dame a lot recently because kind of, they fell out of the top 25 for a bit. They things were on a bit of a rough stretch, and then they've just been kind of quietly chipping their way back up, and quietly maybe until last weekend when they beat Louisville in the regular season finale, but a team that's, I think, like, slowly trending in the right direction. They've now won 6 straight, including their win over Miami to start the ACC tournament yesterday, and I also just feel like when you have Hannah Hidalgo on the floor, like, you can never really count this team out.
I said it, and I keep bringing up yesterday's episode, but I said it there. I picked Notre Dame as my team that could make a run in the ACC, and I said Hannah Hidalgo has one of those games that'll make you jump out your seat. I mean, she is just that impactful. She's that dynamic. And for them, for Notre Dame, they've been on a little run here at the end of the season, but I think it took them that long to kind of gel together. They have a whole new team. I mean, they
Mhm.
have all these graduate transfers who are all very good players, and they're showing that. But I think it just took them, you know, the whole season to kind of come together and to be what they are. And Neil Ivy, give her credit, um, just great at adjusting and just getting with whatever you had, conforming to what you have and figuring out how to make that work. And it, their team, they could really benefit from a couple more wins in this thing, and it's just a team that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think the main reason I'm watching them is just from, like, a bracket standpoint too, like, they're, I'd say, like, pretty comfortably outside the top 16 right now. But, like, if they go win the ACC tournament, which I don't think is that wild of a take, right? Like, yes, Duke and Louisville are the favorites, like, I mean, we just saw Notre Dame upset Louisville last weekend, like, when you have probably the best player in the tournament, like, there's always a chance that you're gonna end it in the championship spot, or, like, I think they have an opportunity here that if they go win this tournament, they can play their way into the top 16.
If they were to win the ACC tournament, I want the picture of Hannah Hidalgo holding all those trophies yesterday when she was just handing her defensive player and her MVP award. And she had to have the guy stand next to her to hold the rest of them because there were just so many. That's the trophy. That's the picture that they should post everywhere on every news channel, every news website. That's the one.
Yes. Alright, I wanna move away from the Power 4 here. I mean, we haven't talked about the Big East at all, but I don't know that there's a whole lot to talk about there. I think everyone's rather expecting UConn to win that, and
Yes.
I think Villanova is a heavy favorite to be second there, and the Villanova should make the field. But I think there's some really important tournaments in the kind of top mid-major leagues this weekend. Ivy's not till next weekend, but Atlantic 10 Conference tournament this weekend, I think has big implications from a bubble standpoint. And as well as it just like the top of that league is so good and it should be such a fun tournament. We've talked about Richmond plenty here this year, Rhode Island, George Mason and Rhode Island shared the regular season title. Richmond is 3 seed. Davidson also really good, and I think this one's gonna be a really fun conference tournament.
Yeah.
Um
Just at I mean, just looking at today's matchups in the A10, uh, George Mason and Dayton,
mhm,
that could be a trap game. Dayton is playing well right now, and I mean, they're a team that they'd have to actually win the whole thing to make the NCAA tournament, but they're playing well. That could be a little bit of a trap. Richmond, I don't think will have too much problem with LaSalle, but uh, they're a team that everybody expected a little bit more of coming into this season. Um, it'd be interesting to see where they go, and when you have Maggie Dugan, and you can't go wrong.
yeah,
She's just that
so
type of
good.
player. And you brought up Davison. I say the same thing about Charlize Dunn. I mean,
Mhm.
A10 has so many players like that that are just fun to watch, and one of my favorite conferences.
Yeah, just such a good league, and, um, I think a league that would love to see get 2 teams to in. I think the only way that happens is Richmond doesn't win the tournament, but probably loses in that championship game. I think Richmond's got a decent shot at an at-large
Yeah,
if they lose in that championship game, and then likely you see a Mason or a well, Rhode Island's on the same half of the bracket as Richmond, right? So if Mason's able or Davidson are able to go and win that tournament, I think they could get 2 in.
yeah. Yeah, it just this bracket, I mean, just loaded. Even
Yeah.
St. Joe's, who is down this year, obviously, but they're another team that could make noise. I mean, it's just up and down the route, up and down. You just look at it, and
Yeah.
yeah,
No, the league does not get talked about enough. It's one of the most fun in
absolutely
the
not.
country. Um, Another thing I just got my eye on is Summit League. Quietly, well, maybe not quietly, everyone talks about South Dakota State. South Dakota State has been a really solid program for years, been a major program for years and years. Has won NCAA tournament games and made it to a Sweet 16 a couple of years ago, I think. Um,
Yeah,
but the top of the Summit League this year between I think North Dakota State actually the 1 seed in that tournament, and these are 2 teams that have just really been back and forth at the top of the league and, are top 45 in the net and, like, I don't maybe do they get 2 in? I think it's not I don't know if it's likely, but I think there's a possibility, and I think also just keeping an eye on the Summit League tournament, if we get another game between those 2 should be really, really fun.
I hope we do, and I hope it goes into about 4 overtimes and ends on a last second shot, and just I mean, that's what we deserve as the viewing public. We deserve that matchup and that kind of game between those two, because I mean, because if they are to get 2 in, that would be my pick for that would be the 2 that I would pick, and
Ye
some things would have to work out, but yeah, I hope that's
yeah,
the kind of game we get, and that's the matchup we get.
I agree. I mean, I think to get 2 in, I think best case is probably North Dakota State wins conference tournament, beats South Dakota State in a close game, and South Dakota State sneaks in as an at-large. I mean, Brooklyn Meyer for them has just been I mean, she's
Yes,
been good for years, but just continues to be so good. And yeah, Summit Conference Final is, if assuming these 2 meet, is a don't miss game. Um, One more on the mid majors, and then we'll wrap it up. But
okay.
gotta keep an eye on Fairfield this weekend. I think too, another team that just maybe has enough to get in at large be in that at large conversation if they don't win the MAC, but I fully expect them to go win the MAC tournament.
Megan Anderson. I mean, you can't say enough about her. She's another one of those mid-major players that has high level talent. I mean, it's just fun to watch, and yeah, Fairfield is just fun in general. They get in. They could be a team depending on where they seed that could be in line for an upset
Mhm.
depending on where they're seated. I mean, and just Carly Dudanis has just done some great things there, and I keep bringing up the other part of this podcast, but they're the reason I know where Fairfield University even is. And who and I know that's part of your area of the world, so
Yes,
you
I live
get
about 15 minutes from Fairfield University.
who knew that they would I had no idea they were even in Connecticut, so, yeah.
Yeah, no, they just I think what's impressed me the most about Fairfield is it's like they've taken a step forward every single year.
Yes.
Like there was the first year where they were kinda undefeated and they were good and everyone started talking about them. And but it's just like they've consecutively each year gotten better and this year, competing with the Princetons and the top of the A10 and like they're quickly becoming again and again a better team each year. And I think that's what's so impressive about what the coaching staff has been able to do, especially in a world where when you're in these mid-major conferences, it's hard to retain talent, and not have them go to the bigger leagues when they're really good. Um, and they've been able to do that and succeed. So I think it's been really awesome to watch them be able to do that. And agreed on the if they get the right matchup, they're a tough team to have as your wherever they fall 10, probably 10, maybe 11. In March, like if they get a matchup where their opponent doesn't have a lot of size, that's their one weakness. They don't got much size, but if they can draw the right matchup, they certainly have a chance to upset someone.
I mean, just in this conference alone, the history of it, Quinnipiac is another
Mhm.
team that's made noise in the NCAA tournament,
Yeah.
so
Another
yeah,
Connecticut team.
yes, shout
Yeah,
out to Coach Trisha Fabry, just
mhm,
yeah, what she's done there has been awesome to watch as well.
yeah, no, agreed. Alright, we'll leave you with that, BMac. Thank you for filling in for Rob. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, Rob will be back next week, and we'll be all through all these major conference tournaments and the A10 and everything next week. So I think the Ivy League will be the biggest one in terms of impacts to the bubble and things like that left next week when we talk. So lots of bracketology talk coming next week before Selection Sunday.
Yeah, and to just give us a nice little teaser, while we wait on the NCAA tournament, we'll have World Cup qualifiers
Oh
to
yeah.
look at next week. Caitlin Clark will be back on the floor. I mean,
No
what more
shortage
can
of
you ask for?
basketball to watch.
Yes, but
Alrighty.
Rob, hurry back. I know people are probably like, "Where's Rob? Bring Rob back." Hope your voice is just fine and you have a great call this weekend, and we'll see you back next week.
Alrighty, that'll do it.